Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely, I never really thought about it like that. Yeah. It it makes me think of
Right. So, I think one of the things that I was even thinking after I said that is just how healthy relationships can actually help our nervous system relearn that it's safe to rest, that it's safe to trust. Right.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I felt that with my group of friends when I was at the height of my issues with my mental health. I was having a PTSD episode and I just could not break out of it. So I reached out to my friends and I let them know, like, hey, I'm at the hospital. I'm struggling with suicidal thoughts because I'm stuck in this episode. And they're Christians, they're phenomenal people. And the way that they surrounded me and they would just listen and say, I wish I could do something to change this for you. You know?
That reminds me something we were talking about last time about presence. Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
your brain doesn't need a kind of like this big emotional like leap or gesture, right? But even one moment that feels just like you were explaining, just kind of like that presence of like, man, I'm here, right? Like I'm with you, right? So even a moment like that can actually start to help your nervous system feel slightly less overwhelmed, right? And that could actually open or begin reopening those pathways where safety is being rebuilt, right? Where trust is being rebuilt. But it starts even, again, even with one person. Man, can I absorb this moment of their presence? Yeah, I'm so grateful that you were able to have like that healing experience because a lot of times that doesn't necessarily happen, which I think it's just really sad, because I think just hearing you talk about that, I'm like, well, kind of sounds like again, like your system was scanning the room for danger, right? That hypervigilance.
Yeah.
Okay, they're yelling, they're saying all these things. Right? So your system has to respond in one way or another to help you survive that moment. And that's where we're either going to go into this fight flight or that freeze response. Right? I'm either still in this place of like I can do something about it. So I'm either going to like move towards it and fight it or I'm going to like run and get out of here. Right?
Yeah.
Nothing else changes, then my system, even if it's kind of like dramatic to say this, but moves into this space of like, I can't do anything about it anymore. So, kind of like I'm preparing for death, kind of like those animals in the
Yeah.
wild that are like, I'm going to play dead and hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, there's
Yeah.
numbness, dissociation, helplessness. Right? But all of that, it's actually like that's communicating something. You start to experience, again, like maybe there's some emotions, right? Those emotions are also messengers. Okay. So whenever we actually can connect with, okay, what's my body telling me? What is this emotion actually communicating? I feel like that's when we can start to tap into that honesty and self compassion. Right? So, and that reduces fear. Kind of tells the body like you're not the enemy. Because that's again those messages, it can feel like, well, is there something wrong with me? That is there something wrong with my body that I'm like, having panic attacks and my heart is beating really fast or man, I don't feel anything. Is there something wrong with me? And it's just like, no, it's your body giving you these internal cues. Hey, you gotta do something. You're in danger. There's a threat. Yeah. And we don't necessarily talk much about with anyone. really how important is the emotional, like feeling emotionally safe. And that comes from, I mean, a lot of it starts in childhood, right? Just having that freedom to express emotions without experiencing consequences or judgment, right? To know that you can be vulnerable, that it is safe to be vulnerable, right? So all those experiences, those are what we call attachment needs, right? That
Mm,
comes from whenever we are little. And if those attachment needs are not met, they don't disappear. We either at some point, maybe, yeah, we were able to heal and learn how to meet those needs in healthy ways, but more often than not, we either ignore them, right? We push them down, or we meet them in unhealthy ways, but they don't
yeah.
disappear, right? And now I feel like, again, you put this message in the end, which is, I just the way I think that a lot of just churches work, right? That it's like, well, be involved, right? Go to small group, go do all these things. And you haven't necessarily felt emotionally safe. There is still those voices inside that are saying, well, no, you can't feel that. That's too much. They're going to think you are fill in the blank. Okay. Like you're too needy. You're not enough. You're too much. Um, or what are they going to think of you if you share this? Right? So you start to kind of like criticize yourself, to judge your emotions.
That's the story of my life.
But they don't
Yeah.
go. I mean,
No.
those don't disappear. They just stay in this like basement hoping that they never come out.
Yeah.
Right? So not only feel like as we're talking, right, and we were talking about betrayal, so not only at times we experience betrayal on the outside, but now there's betrayal on the inside because there's a part of us that is crying out for our attention, but then we just continue to ignore it because it's either maybe too painful, too scary, or who's going to be there to pick me up if I fall apart. I feel like that's
Yeah.
just like a basic attachment human need, right? If I fall
Yeah.
apart, who's going to be there?
Mm.
So it can
Or
be
who's gonna understand me and not belittle me or get mad at me because I'm acting in a way that I don't have much control over. You know, right now I'm doing the best that I can, but this is all I can give. That space where you can feel safe to get it wrong.
yeah. Yeah. And I think also we often forget, and I can't remember if we were talking about this last time, but we often forget like Jesus was fully human as well. Jesus experienced and he actually like displayed his emotions. Like he literally wept not just one time. Like you can see it, right? Even just like not only with Lazarus, but whenever he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, like he was like sweating blood. He was in high distress. And he was not hiding that. Like that was not sinful. That was not too much. No, that's what he was experiencing. He literally told God the Father, like, please take this cup from me. And like that is like high distress. And he is outpouring kind of like his soul to the Father. We see whenever he gets angry at the market, man, there's a physical response to that, right? He flips the tables. He's angry, like he's frustrated. And I'm like, okay, so if Jesus did that, that means that we can also express our emotions, right? It's again, those emotions are communicating something. They're messengers. So to kind of like dismiss that or pretend they're not there, that's why I was like, huh, that kind of sounds also like a betrayal on the
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah, no, definitely. I had to, and I still have to do this every once in a while, but I had to go through a process of forgiving myself because I'm basically, as I sit and I criticize all these things about myself, I'm not loving myself well. I'm not being kind to myself. If someone said to me what I say to myself every day, I don't think it would go well for them or me. um, I wouldn't tolerate someone speaking to me in that way. So why do I do that to myself?
Yeah. Yeah. And also I think I say this quite often, but it's okay. Start where you are, not where you think you should be. If you're becoming aware,
Yeah.
hey, I'm actually like the way that I'm talking to myself, that's just, man, I don't know if I could tell that to someone else. It wouldn't go well for me. Then I'm like, okay, well, then today, right? Where are you at? And showing up counts, right? Every gentle choice tells your body it's safe enough. And it might be just that we start to look at maybe kind of like win of the day. And maybe the win of the day is I woke up today and I got out of bed. Great. Right? So instead of like going all the way to, again, this is true, right? But sometimes it can feel like it's too much to like, I can't absorb it. Like, wow, God calls me like his daughter and, like he created me in my mother's womb. And like all of that is true. And if there is a part of me that is having a hard time receiving that, instead of shaming myself, instead of like beating myself up for not believing that, I can be gentle towards myself, right? And I can go with that same confidence that Jesus went to the Father. I can go to him, be like, I know this is true. And there's a part of me that has a hard time believing it. What I can say about me today, I woke up today. Like, and that's as far as I can get today. Again, you start with this honesty and you start to build this intimacy with God that can lead to, okay, it is safe. Okay, I can trust. But it is a process. And our emotions are messengers. And it's totally okay and a very natural human response to feel our emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me think about in my culture, my experience of my culture, the way that things are if you're hurt by someone, I mean, even if someone traumatized you, like they've done something that's really bad to you, it's a small island, so you see those people and you often have to pretend that nothing happened. And some of them are really brazen and they would come up to you and have a conversation with you as if nothing happened. But it's acceptable for you to just pretend that nothing happened, completely dissociate from the situation, and continue having a relationship with these people. And recently, I got to a place where I decided I'm not going to do that anymore. If someone has done something that's very harmful to me, I forgive them, I let it go, but I'm going to honor the way that I feel in this situation. I'm going to do everything I can. Um, the Bible talks about live peaceably with others as much as it is within you. Do the best that I can to live at peace with others, but if they're not going to be kind, if they're not going to be respectful, like I don't want to be in relationship with that person. And even in relationships that I do have that's ongoing, friendships and my relationship with my husband, giving myself the grace to speak up and say how I feel and give them space to share what they feel. And it not be about our egos, it not be about who's right and who's wrong. It's about, I just want to share my heart about what I experienced in this situation. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying that I'm hurt. Yeah. It's hard to find people who don't make it about them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why it is important to find, even if it's just one person that feels safe. Right? Not everyone needs or gets to be that person.
Yeah.
Right? But even if it's just one, starting there and building again like that consistency. Um And just knowing that it might take time, and it's not, I think a lot, again, you're in a relationship, those wounds are going to get triggered, but it's at the same
Yeah.
time that in those relationships, your wounds can actually experience healing and safety, right? In those healthy relationships. So it might take time to actually get to that place where, wow, I get to be fully vulnerable with you. But it's in the honesty, right? Whether that's with God or with the person in front of you. And just being honest, hey, this is where I am right now. Hey, there's a lot more going on. But what I can share with you is that in this moment or when that happened, man, I was feeling really anxious.
Yeah.
Right? Because, and again, whatever might be the case, or my body felt really tense because it reminded me of something really painful that happened in the past. So you don't even have to disclose all the information, but it's just like those like small steps of like, okay, my nervous system is feeling really overwhelmed. If I share this 1%, it might help to feel less, like slightly less overwhelmed. And that creates the space for connection, even if it's just
Yeah.
a little bit, right? It increases
Hmm.
that capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say in relationships where the other person is having a difficult time taking accountability and you're doing the best that you can to be as honest and as kind, and graceful, but also you're being impacted by their behavior. And sometimes you don't want to walk away from those relationships because of the type of relationship it is. How do you navigate something like that?
And that's such a good question. And I don't necessarily think there's like, okay, there's this one thing that you
Yeah,
do,
of course.
but it's, even if on the outside this person is not maybe recognizing or minimizing, right, my feelings. Um on the outside, this person might not own up to their side, right? What am I responsible for? And I am responsible for how I enforce my boundaries. It's not the other person's responsibility to enforce those boundaries for me. Right? But it might be that, okay, what is my capacity? How often do I see this person? How much do I share with this person? Right. I think another thing could be, even if on the outside nothing is changing, on the inside, how am I responding to what is coming up for me? After I interact with this person, what do I do afterwards? Do I slow down? Do I pause? Do I check in? And what do I need? It could be as simple as like, oh, I might need some water and food. That was very overwhelming and I just need to nourish myself. Or it might be like, okay, do I have the capacity to sit with this heaviness that showed up from the interaction that I had with this person? So
Yeah,
even if nothing changes on the outside, how am I responding to what I need? How am I responding
yeah,
to the emotions that are coming up from the interaction I had with this person?
yeah. And taking accountability on your own. Is there anything I did that would have caused certain reactions? Not saying that they aren't accountable for the way that they act. But sometimes it's a day too, I think, to reflect on your own behavior, the way that you treat people. Um, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's say when you are interacting with someone else and you're having a conversation with this person that it just might feel, okay, there's a threat there, right? There's either history, right, where there's been a lot of pain, or I'm sharing how I'm feeling and they're minimizing my feelings. They're not even recognizing what's actually happening. Um, my responsibility, it is still how I communicate and what I
Yeah.
communicate. If I'm communicating in a calm, clear, kind way, and the other person maybe chooses to feel upset about the information that I'm not sharing, well, that's on them. That's not on me to carry this responsibility to regulate their emotions. So yes, it is healthy to also, okay, let's do a check-in. Is there anything in that interaction that happened? But if the other person got upset at something that I set the boundary and no,
Mhm.
I don't want to share more, and they got upset about that, that's not
Yeah.
my responsibility to regulate their emotions. It's not my
Yeah.
responsibility to violate my boundaries so that they can be happy or at peace with me.
Yeah. Something that I've been learning a lot about recently is getting caught up in people's emotional there's a term for it, but you get caught up in their and you go through this the drama triangle with them, the whole victim, persecutor, um I think the other one is advocate. Is it advocate or something like
It's
that?
I mean,
Or
it's like a
protector.
triangulation. Yeah.
Yeah, so protector, victim, and villain, basically, I believe. Yeah, I've been learning so much more about that, and I've been learning that you often find in relationships that are not healthy for you, where persons aren't taking accountability for their behavior, you honestly just keep getting caught up in that drama triangle. And you have to make a decision to, like you said, set boundaries and do the best that you can to not feel guilty about it, because sometimes people don't like when you set those boundaries. They get really upset and it then becomes this thing where it's like you're the problem, you know?
Yeah. I mean, whenever you're caught up in that, let's say it's like that triangulation, right? Like that damages trust, right? It
Yeah.
can increase resentment. It creates these like alliances or sides, right? Like I think it oftentimes it even like prevents for like a real resolution. And now the third person is also put in this like uncomfortable spot. And what actually needs repair never gets addressed. So it is really hard to actually like be in the middle of that. It impacts you, it impacts the relationship, and nothing really gets repaired. So it can become a cycle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen this. I think something that comes to mind that at least like I've seen it in like church communities is that type of relationship can sometimes be kind of like masked as I'm just asking for prayer, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeking for wisdom,
Mm,
or I just need to process this a little bit more, right? But if the intention is to avoid the person that I need to go and have maybe this uncomfortable conversation, right? So if the intention is to avoid that or to kind of like gain this ally against this person, like that's triangulation. Like
yeah.
that is actually not healthy for anyone involved. And you can't get caught up in this like you're kind of like absorbing and taking on their emotions.
Yeah. It becomes a strange codependent relationship.
Hmm.
It's really hard to step outside of. Yeah, you're looking to these people to help regulate you, to help um, rescue you from your situations, or you're looking for someone to be that victim, to blame, to be upset with. Yeah, it's really, yeah, yeah.
I think when we talk about these things, right, it can also be activating for the nervous system
Yeah.
because it's something that feels probably familiar, right? So it's okay if your system is feeling overwhelmed. That's usually communicating something, right? It might be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that was too much, too fast," right?
Yeah.
Or again, it's just that way of protecting. So I think that if we listen to our bodies, we actually like our bodies are communicating so
Yeah.
much. Um, I feel like even numbness. Sometimes when I'm like, I don't feel anything, and I'm like, well, that is still communicating something. It might be that
Yeah.
feeling something is too painful. So, numbness or dissociation is actually what your system does in order to protect, in order to survive, right?